The Realtor's BMW pulled into my driveway at 9 a.m. sharp, followed by my parents' white Mercedes. I watched from my home office window as they got out, my mother pointing at my garden, gesticulating wildly, probably complaining about the wildflowers I'd let grow instead of her preferred manicured lawn. The doorbell rang, then rang again. Then my mother started pounding. "Natalie, open up. We have business to discuss." I took my time walking downstairs, saving my work document first, refilling my coffee. Let them wait. When I finally opened the door, the realtor, a sharp-dressed woman with 2 white teeth, was already taking photos of my porch. "Finally," Mom huffed, pushing past me into my house. "This is Ms. Brennan from Coldwell Banker. She's here to assess the property." "I'm sorry, what property?" I asked, though I knew exactly what was happening. Dad wandered into my living room, hands in his pockets, that familiar look of disdain on his face. "Don't play dumb, Natalie. We're selling this dump." Ms. Brennan extended her hand, which I didn't take. "Your parents tell me you've been squatting here since your aunt passed. I'm sure we can find you a nice apartment once we get this place market ready." "Squatting? In my own house? The wallpaper has to go," Mom was already saying, running her fingers along my carefully restored vintage wallpaper. "And these old hardwood floors. Nobody wants original hardwood anymore. We'll put in that gray laminate everyone loves." "Tear down that wall," Dad added, pointing to the wall between my kitchen and dining room. "Open concept. That's what sells." Ms. Brennan was taking notes, nodding enthusiastically. "The bones are good, but it needs updating. I'm thinking we list at $750,000 after renovations." $750,000? Mom laughed. "In this neighborhood? With the market this hot? Try $900,000. They were discussing the sale of my house. My house that I'd spent 3 years restoring. My house that Aunt Helen had left me 5 years ago. My house that they'd never even visited until today. "Losers like you should rent forever," Mom said, turning to me with that familiar sneer. "You're 34, single, working some computer job from home. You don't need a 4-bedroom house. It's embarrassing, honestly. What do the neighbors think?" "Pack your trash," Dad added, already opening my closets, inspecting them. "We'll give you 2 weeks. "That's generous." Ms. Brennan was measuring my living room windows. "These will need updating. Double pane, energy efficient. Buyers expect modern amenities." I sipped my coffee and smiled. "Ms. Brennan, can I ask you something?" "Of course, dear. I know this must be hard, but your parents are doing what's best. Did they show you any paperwork?" She paused. "Paperwork. Proof of ownership. A deed. Title. Anything that shows they have the legal right to sell this house." "Well, they're your parents. They said the house was inherited from your father's sister. My father's sister left it to me. Not to them. To me. 5 years ago." Mom rolled her eyes. "Don't listen to her. She's delusional. Has been since childhood. We had to take over her finances years ago because she's not capable. Would you like to see the deed?" I asked Ms. Brennan, pulling out my phone. "I keep a digital copy. Right here. Natalie Cross, sole owner. Transferred from Helen Cross's estate in 2019. The realtor's face went pale. She looked at my parents, then at me, then at her notebook. "You told me you owned this property," she said to my parents, her voice sharp. "We're her parents," Dad said, as if that explained everything. "We have rights." "No," Ms. Brennan said, backing toward the door. "You don't. You've wasted my time and potentially implicated me in attempted fraud." "It's not fraud," Mom shrieked. "We're trying to help her. She doesn't deserve a house like this. She was supposed to be a doctor, a lawyer, something respectable. Not some computer person working in her pajamas." "I'm a software engineer," I said calmly. "I make $400,000 a year. I own 3 patents. But please, tell me more about how I'm a loser." Dad's face went red. "You're lying." "Am I? Should I show Ms. Brennan my tax returns too? Or maybe the deed to the rental property I bought last year? Or the one I bought the year before that?" My parents stood frozen. They'd never asked about my job, never cared about my success. To them, I was the disappointing daughter who didn't become a surgeon like my brother Kevin, didn't marry rich like my sister Angela. I was invisible until they thought they could profit from me. "Get out," I said quietly. "You can't kick us out," Mom laughed. "We're your parents. Ms. Brennan, would you please call the police? I have trespassers in my home who won't leave." The realtor was already at the door. "I'm not getting involved in this." "But ma'am," She looked at my parents. Falsely claiming to own property and attempting to sell it is a felony. You might want to leave before this escalates. She fled, her heels clicking down my driveway. This isn't over, Dad growled. You owe us. We raised you, fed you, housed you for 18 years. And I noticed you never visited once in the 5 years I've lived here. Not until you thought you could sell it. Because it's embarrassing. Mom exploded. You living in Helen's house like some charity case. Helen only left it to you because she felt sorry for you. The pathetic middle child no one wanted. There it was. The truth of how they saw me. Helen left it to me, I said slowly, because I was the only one who visited her when she was dying. I was the only one who cared. You didn't even come to her funeral. We were busy, Dad muttered. You were in Vegas. I saw the Instagram posts. I walked to my door and held it open. Leave. Now. Or I call the police. They left, but not quietly. Mom knocked over my porch plan on purpose. Dad keyed my car on his way past. Joke was on him. My Tesla's cameras caught everything. That night, I got a text from my brother Kevin. Did you really kick Mom and Dad out? They're saying you stole Aunt Helen's house. Then from Angela. How could you? They were trying to help you. I didn't respond. Instead, I did something better. I pulled up the county property records website. Public information, all of it. My parents' house, the one they'd been bragging about for 30 years, the one they'd said was worth $2 million, was in foreclosure. They were 4 months behind on payments. The notice was dated 3 weeks ago. That's why they wanted my house. Not to help me. To save themselves. I dug deeper. Dad's business, the one he'd been running into the ground for years while telling everyone he was a successful entrepreneur, had filed for bankruptcy. Mom's credit cards were maxed out. I found court records of 3 lawsuits from creditors. They were broke. Completely, utterly broke. And then I found the eviction notice. They had 30 days to vacate their house. 30 days from yesterday. They hadn't come to sell my house for my own good. They'd come to steal it because they were about to be homeless. I called my lawyer, Diana, an old college friend who'd helped with Aunt Helen's estate. They did what? She laughed when I told her. Oh, this is gold. Did you get it on camera? My doorbell camera got everything, including them claiming to own my house. Beautiful. File a police report for the attempted fraud and the vandalism to your car. Get a restraining order too. With their financial situation, they're going to get desperate. She was right. The next day, they showed up again, this time with a different realtor. I called the police. They were issued a warning. The day after that, they tried to break in while I was at the grocery store. My security system alerted me, and the police caught them in my backyard trying to jimmy the sliding door. Arrested. Both of them. At their arraignment, they stood in orange jumpsuits while the judge read the charges. Attempted breaking and entering, trespassing, vandalism, and attempted fraud. Your Honor, their public defender said, my clients are facing eviction and believe they had a right to their daughter's property. No one has a right to someone else's property. The judge cut him off. Bail is set at $10,000 each. They couldn't make bail. They sat in jail for 3 days before Angela finally put up the money. While they were locked up, I did something that would make Aunt Helen proud. I bought their house. Not directly. That would have been too obvious. I used an LLC I'd created for my rental properties. Cash offer as is quick close. The bank was thrilled to get it off their books. I got it for $400,000. A steal, considering they owed $1.8 million on it. My parents were served eviction papers the day they got out of jail. The new owner was giving them 72 hours to vacate. They called me, of course. Please, Mom sobbed into the phone. We have nowhere to go. No money. Nothing. Rent an apartment, I suggested. I hear there are some nice ones on the south side. Those are Section 8. Dad roared in the background. We're not those people. You're right, I said. Those people probably didn't try to steal their daughter's house. We're your parents. Were. You were my parents. Now you're just 2 people who tried to commit fraud and got caught. The day they were evicted, I was there. Not as their daughter, but as the representative of the LLC that now owned the house. I brought a crew to change the locks and security codes. They stood on the lawn with their hastily packed boxes, my brother Kevin arguing with the police about family rights, while Angela cried about the injustice of it all. You bought it, Mom finally realized, seeing me with the keys. You bought our house? The bank's house, I corrected. You haven't owned it for months. What are you going to do with it? I smiled. I'm turning it into transitional housing for women leaving domestic violence situations. Aunt Helen would have loved that. She always said this house should shelter people who needed it. Dad lunged at me, but the police officer stepped between us. Sir, step back. She's destroying our lives, he screamed. No, I said, looking him in the eye. You destroyed your own lives. You spent 30 years telling me I was a loser, a disappointment, worthless. You tried to steal my house when yours was being foreclosed. You brought a realtor to my home and tried to sell it. You said losers don't deserve property. I held up the keys to their former house. Turns out you were right. Losers don't deserve property. And you just lost yours. Kevin tried one last guilt trip. Where are they supposed to go? I don't know, Kevin. Maybe you could help them. You're the successful surgeon, right? The golden child. Surely you have room in your mansion. His face went pale. I can't. Rebecca would never. And the kids. Right. The kids. Funny how family obligations only flow one way in this family. Angela was no better. I'm in the middle of a divorce. I can't take them. So my parents, who'd spent decades calling me the family failure, stood homeless while their successful children made excuses. I got in my Tesla, the one Dad had keyed, the repair bill for which would be added to his restitution, and drove away. They're living in a motel now, from what I hear. Kevin and Angela split the cost of a room for a month, then abandoned them. Mom got a job at Walmart. Dad works at a car wash. They're the age where they should be retiring, but their greed and cruelty cost them everything. The transitional housing opened last month. 6 women and their children now live in my parents' former mansion. They've turned Mom's prized rose garden into a vegetable garden. Dad's home office is now a playroom. The dining room where my parents hosted dinners to show off their wealth is now where survivors share meals and rebuild their lives. I kept one thing from the house, a photo from my parents' wall. It's them at some charity gala, dressed in designer clothes, surrounded by other wealthy couples, champagne glasses raised. The picture of success. I hung it in the transitional house's office with a plaque. This house was donated by a woman whose parents tried to steal her home. Let it serve as a reminder that true wealth isn't what you take from others, but what you give to those in need. Last week, I got a letter from my mother. She's asking for money, of course. Says they're sorry. Says they've learned their lesson. Says family should forgive. I sent back a copy of the deed to my house, highlighted where it says Natalie Cross, sole owner. At the bottom, I wrote, "Losers don't deserve property. You taught me that. Thanks for the lesson." They wanted my house because theirs was gone. They called me a loser who should rent forever. They brought a realtor to steal what I'd earned. Instead, they lost everything, and I bought their house for less than I make in a year. Aunt Helen was right in her will. I leave my house to Natalie, the only one who knows that a home isn't about property value. It's about values, period. My parents never understood that.